uses this term built by freedom. It's a term we trademarked, which means if it's built by freedom, that means it's freedom infused in every component and every part and every bit of labor has to come from US soil. And so our built by freedom is like made in America, but branded for origin, because it's different when we say made in America. We just constantly beat that drum. 100 years ago, this is how it was done. You actually made the thread to sew the shoe. You tanned the leather. You didn't import that stuff. And so out of $1 spent, 100 cents stays on US soil. It's a bit crazy. I like crazy.
Oh, dude, so like doing some like digging on you, some of the early day stuff, because I know a lot of the modern day and what the fight is that you're doing now, but like I didn't know that you went to Abu Dhabi back in the day and competed.
Yeah, I was. I won the trials. I was a brown belt, but used to have brown and black belts together, and I won the trials. And you know, the sheikh, he ships all the winners from all the countries to Abu Dhabi for 10 days to compete in, like, you know, for the championship, the World Pro Championship. But yeah, I lost in my division, and then I made it to the quarterfinals of the open weight division, and I lost to Shanji Hibero in the last minute. I was up on him on points, but he ended up catching me in a triangle with like 15 seconds left. So it was good. And then that was where I saw my shit being ripped off, and when I decided I'm gonna quit competing and start building a factory. That was the defining moment in Abu Dhabi.
Right, and I want to kind of get into that. But how big is this dude? Because to put you in a triangle, you have to be a large man.
Shanji, I mean, what is he, a seven-time or 10-time world champion? So I mean, he won the open weight. I think Hodger once or twice in the open weight division. So like it's not that he's a huge guy. He's just legendary, I guess. Definitely strong for sure, but very technical.
That's wild. Yeah, I got a quote saying that was kind of the moment of clarity, saying this gear sucks, and we can do better, and we will do better.
Yeah.
And we'll make it here in America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Your quotes, man. I know Jocko's like famous and whatnot, but I don't know, man. Like Pete's quotes are pretty damn solid. The stuff that comes out of Pete's mouth is the one-liners that you drop is solid.
There's a few one-liners. It's probably why Jocko and I get along, so
right.
well.
Yeah, man. So tell me about that. Like, when did you start jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks for having me on. Glad to finally get connected. So phenomenal to be on. And
I've only asked you for like 3 years, but whatever.
Have you really? No, you haven't.
I think it's been several years. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on me.
I just love this story, man. I love America.
It.
I love the origin story. I'm such a fan. It's so much bigger than just jeans and boots and jiu-jitsu gear. Like there's just and I recognize that through my own stuff. So, but yeah, when did you like this white boy from Maine?
Yeah,
how did you find jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu. Well, I mean, at first it was, when it was about 20 years ago, and at first it was like, all right, get out of college. I dropped out of college. I was a Division I athlete, and after like a year, I was like, I need to do something with fighting. I just had this desire to fight. So
them Spartan jeans coming out.
Yeah, the Spartan, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, my papa used to say when I was a kid, he's like, you never forget Peter Paniotti, right? You never forget Paniotti. You have Spartan blood in you.
Yeah.
Your is from Sparta, So my great yaya, she lived till about 105, but she came down from the mountains of Sparta and immigrated to the U.S. So it's something like way before the 300 movie came out and everything. My papa was always saying that to me. But I had that Spartan kind of fight in me, I guess you could say, or young testosterone. And in college, I first picked up Taekwondo, and I was like, all right, this is what fighting is, And after about a year I was just kicking everybody's ass, and I was in the competitions and tournaments and everything. I was like, okay, this is kind of not what I'm looking for. It's more like point fighting. If I really unleash, like they don't let you truly unleash. And so then I was like trying to find out what is real fighting. What does that look like? And I discovered jiu-jitsu, and obviously through the UFC, like everybody else. And so I started training right away in the mid 2000s, and I just fell in love. I became addicted and passionate about it. And I was like 6'3", 275 pounds, 25 or 26 years old, and I got my ass choked out by some computer geek in like 15 seconds, and I didn't know what happened.
You're like,
And
okay, I need to learn this.
yeah, exactly. And I was back then super athletic, still had all my joints and tendons and everything was working, flexible, and
Yeah.
it's like I was a good athlete, and this kid just tuned me up, and I couldn't believe it what had just happened, and I was just like, okay, I love this. I need to learn what this is. So
Who'd you
the feeling.
Who'd you follow? Oh yeah, my first time, I got put in a triangle by a 15-year-old girl who had been training like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. She had been training since she was like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just,
Yep.
I came out of it, starry-eyed, like I just got put to sleep, and just going,
Yep.
Did that just happen? Did I just get beat up by a 15-year-old little girl?
So humbling.
Yes, it is.
Humbling.
But yeah, man. So who did you fall under? Was it Dideco that?
Yeah, I was with a guy in Maine, Aaron Blake, who's still a friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a number of years, but he had trained kind of the self-defense side of stuff, and then some sport. And he gave me my purple belt, I think. And then I made friends with Alexei, who
Yeah, of course.
and he introduced me to Dideco, and naturally I was wanting to compete, and those guys were big competitors in Brazil. They used to be, I mean, their generation, they were the best of the best, right? And that's like 30 years back now. It's like the 90s.
Yeah.
But Alexei was in Maine, and the only reason he was in Maine was because his father, they basically put a pin on the map, or shot a dart against the board of the world, and it landed on Maine. And so they moved from Brazil to Maine which is a crazy story in itself. And so I befriended Alexei, and he took me under his wing. And I had actually, when I first met him, I was a blue belt, and I had I came in like, I lost in the quarterfinals of the blue belt adult world championship. And I was just training here in the woods of Maine, and so I got real close, but I was like kind of at the top of my game as a blue belt, and I went and saw Alexei, and he tuned me up like I've never felt before, and he didn't break a sweat. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I mean, it was like the second revelation of
there's levels to this game.
You don't know shit.
Yeah.
And we became just close friends, and I met Dideco through Alexei, and we all just became kind of like a family, and guys took me under their wing. Dideco not only became my business partner, right? Him and Alexei became my instructors, and I got my black belt from Dideco and my other belts from Dideco and Alexei. And so
it's weird that you just landed in some of the most salt of the earth, best human beings that I've met in my life.
Yeah, laws of attraction, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's a blessing.
Yeah, super blessing. Those guys they are salt of the earth dudes. I mean, for like Alexei, for a guy from Brazil, and he's getting his coral belt next year too.
No way.
Yeah. So a guy from Brazil, like in Maine, and he's a jiu-jitsu. I use the word jiu-jitsu bum lovingly.
Yeah.
He's a jiu-jitsu bum in a loving way. That's all he does. That's his life. It's his career. Yeah. He's got his school. He doesn't have 1,000 students. He's I don't know. He lives in a log cabin in the woods. like a little a literal, like hand
Yeah.
hewn log cabin in the woods by a river, and in America, which is a dream for a lot of these guys.
Right.
So he's phenomenal. And then Dad goes down in obviously Massachusetts, and again, family man. He's got a big school,
Yeah.
and just a salt of the earth, dude.
So go back to this, and I want to talk about the biggest problems, but just from my own interest, and I've seen it on social media, and I've heard it, but to hear it from your own voice, this idea that, oh, this gear sucks as you're training, and then you just in a way, and obviously it's not exactly like that way, but in a way you blow up your life and you go all in on this idea,
Yeah.
Long time ago, like was over
Yeah.
15 years at this point, right?
Yeah, there was some build up to that moment. There was some hardship, your standard entrepreneurial story that every ADHD entrepreneur has. You don't fit
Yeah.
in the box, like just everything. Education isn't built for you, and you really can't work for anybody because you're full of vigor and ideas
No,
and structures.
they need to put you in a box so you can do the
Yeah,
job that they need you to
right.
do, and you're like, I can't be in here.
Can't be in the box.
Can't be in the
So
box.
I don't know any way except for I eat what I kill,
Yeah.
right? And so when it comes to life, since 19 or 20 years old, I haven't worked for anybody. I haven't had a boss, right? When I dropped out of college, I was like, cool. Now it's time to make a life and to try and course correct break the cycle, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so my first business, I started out of my college apartment, and ended up a young entrepreneur, losing everything during the recession, selling all my possessions, ended up with nothing, almost lost my home, but was able to keep at that time it was a little timber frame home cabin, really. And
Were you
and
with your
just
wife at
knew
the
that.
time?
What's that?
You already married at this time?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah, we got married young. We started dating when we were 16, and we got married when I was 19.
Nice.
So we had a lot we had to start early. We were, I don't know what we were running from or running towards, and I still don't know what
Both
we're running
at
towards.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, running from being a poor kid, growing up, mom on welfare, and alcoholic dad in rehab, and the whole kind of story, right? But so running from something, running towards something different, trying to break the cycle, and so I found myself in kind of a similar situation, right? After I lost everything during the recession, 2008, 2009. I had to put my family on state aid for 6 months or 8 months while I got my shit back together. Two young kids at home. Luckily, didn't lose my home, but jiu-jitsu kept me on the rails. Like it was that. It's like how do I explain it? It's like looking, for the Ark of the Covenant. It's like jiu-jitsu. There's so much knowledge. There's so much knowledge in jiu-jitsu. It just kept me engaged with wanting to learn.
The path.
And it's like what's that?
The path.
The path. Yeah,
Stay on the
exactly
path.
that. Yeah, you stay when you're addicted at that level. You have to stay in it, and by staying in it, you have to keep yourself somewhat aware and grounded, because jiu-jitsu is such a humbling sport. We call it 3D chess or human chess. I mean, you're using your mind and your body and everything. And so I was just so addicted to jiu-jitsu, and I obviously was competing at the time, and I had seen this uniform that we're wearing, and I'd seen it for a long time. It was just old. It was like 100 years, cotton textile. It was horrible. It got wet and cold, and in competition, in between rounds, you'd get cold, your muscles would get tight, and I remember I used to reach out to like brands, basically saying you could do this, you could do that. I was like a young 20-something-year-old kid, You know, but I was a designer, like pure play kind of designer kid. And, you know, I never got any responses or
Yeah.
anything like, oh, that's a good idea, or, you know, that's a shitty idea. I had these ideas for like these grip training devices and these sleeves you would pull up, and now they wear them in like basketball, but for under the kimono, so you wouldn't get like chafe, and you know, for different cuts of the jiu-jitsu gi, and you know, nobody was really interested, and I get why, because the addressable market's like nobody, right? It's like 2 million people worldwide, so there's not even any freaking customers. But you know, I was obsessed with it, and so when after I lost everything, I kind of just was like, the next thing I do in life, I gotta build something with my hands. I need to make a physical product. I gotta be part of something more meaningful, and that's where the idea from Origin came from. It was out of the recession, trying to establish something new in something I was very passionate about, jiu-jitsu, with this naive idea that I'm gonna change jiu-jitsu, right? And at the time, I was freaking, what was I? Was I a purple belt maybe in 2010 or
The
so? Probably
audacity.
purple belt.
The
Is
audacity
that?
of this purple belt just going to
Yeah,
change everything.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Which, you know, I hadn't been in it long enough to have a voice, right?
You know, it's funny. I said the same thing to Tom DeBlas because he opened up his first academy as a purple belt.
Yeah,
And he was just like, I didn't know I couldn't.
exactly.
I didn't know I need permission. I just did it
Yeah,
because I
right.
wanted to
Yeah.
do it.
Just wanted to do it, right? It's America.
Yeah. And I think that
Um,
there's a trend to that for people that are successful. And like if you're listening to this, like I think that there's a lot in that, right? A lot of people are waiting for permission. They're waiting for this like a big epiphany or this next thing to happen when the reality is you just need to freaking do it.
Yep. Yep. You never know. And most people are scared of the unknown. I've always really loved the unknown. I've embraced the unknown. It's turning
Yeah.
me gray, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, the world is really built on unreasonable men doing unreasonable things. Like that's how we got here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and I guess in a way I'm unreasonable, at least in the way that society tries to box you in and educate you. And I never liked it. Since I was a little kid, I never liked what I was supposed to be or the path I should have been on. And so I always looked at the world a little bit differently, a bit naive, um, and I believed my ideas. I believed my ideas were good. Um, and so I dove in and I looked for manufacturing in the U.S. And especially in New England, I couldn't find it. I went to some places like, you can't make that here. You
Why
know,
were you looking US out the gate? Like why didn't you just take the designer and go like I'm gonna go find somebody overseas to make this for me?
you know, I had heard all the stories growing up of obviously my papa and my yaya, but you know I'm from Massachusetts. I was born in Gloucester, and they immigrated to Peabody, into the Peabody and Ipswich area of Massachusetts. And my great yaya worked at the Lowell spinning mills as a Lowell mill girl, right? And my papa worked at the Peabody tanneries, you know, tanning leather since he was 8 years old. So there was this, and my other great grandfather, he had a shoe shop, and he was a cobbler, and so Patton lived in Massachusetts. Patton used to come bring his boots to my great grandfather, and he would
No
repair
kidding.
Patton's boots. So there's just like this rich history in manufacturing, not just in New England, but in my family tree.
Okay.
And so I had heard all these stories. My papa used to romanticize about these stories about working in the tanneries, the hard work that they did. And so my first thought was like, America's a manufacturing empire. This is going to be no factor to go find source getting this stuff made. Why is everybody making it in Pakistan? Come to find out, uh, there wasn't any manufacturing left, and what there was simple straight stitch goods. You know, just simple things, and manufacturing was kind of looked at as poo poo, like that's in the past. That work isn't worth our time. And I asked why. Like who told you that? Like who told you that it wasn't worth your time? And what value do you put on those words? Oh, some freaking corporate raiders and predatory capitalists, and I'm a capitalist, but like there's predatory capitalists and these freaking politicians who think they have your best interests in mind.
And you're in your
Who the hell
20s.
wants to do this? What's that?
And you're in your 20s thinking this.
Yeah, I'm like 20. I gotta be, geez, maybe 29 at this point. I'm thinking maybe 30. Right, it was right around there. I had to have to work backwards, but right around there because it's 2010, 2011, 46 right now. So is that 29 or 30, right? Yeah. 2010, 2011, yeah. And come to find out, they were right. I called mills like, hey, can you weave this type of fabric? They're like, yeah, 1,000,000 yards, or that's the commitment, or $1 million, I guess was the commitment. I'm like, yeah, I don't have two nickels to rub together or a bucket to piss in. Like I got my family on freaking state aid at the moment, which I was super embarrassed about. Yeah. Super embarrassed, like doing everything in my power.
That's an ego hit for sure, as a father and husband. Yeah.
Oh, bad. 2 little kids at home, and my wife now working in the school system, making $17,000 a year, supporting the family. Well, this guy's off gallivanting, trying to, change the world. But
how was that dynamic back then? Was she supportive, or was it tense?
Gosh, she was so focused on the kids. The kids were little. Just focused on keeping that nuclear family together, and of course we grew up together.
Yeah.
We've known each other since we were 13. So she knows me. Like if anybody knows me, she knows me. Like
all the good and the bad and all the little soft spots and
yes. But she always believed in me, and normally if I said I was going to do, I could do something, she actually took it at face value.
Yeah.
If I'm like, hey babe, I think I can change this thing. I think I can make this better, and there's a market for it. She's usually like, yeah, I believe you can. And she'd give me the flexibility to do that. But this was a little bit more trying, right? Because I didn't have a job, and so she did, and I started this newsletter, this online newsletter, and folks who train jiu-jitsu, I am the guy in the newsletter. It's called BJJ Weekly. We started a YouTube channel, and I traveled around training with people, and it was really popular. So anybody who's been in jiu-jitsu for 10, 15 years, they were a subscriber to this free newsletter I put out, once a week. It's funny I say that because Dennis Eiler, production manager, he's a brown belt now. I gave him his brown belt, but we were talking one day after he had been working here for a year. He moved up here from South Carolina, and I was telling him the story. I was like, yeah, I used to have this thing called BJJ Weekly. He's like, oh, stop. BJJ Weekly? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're the guy from BJJ Weekly? And I'm like, yes. He's like, holy shit, I've watched all those videos. I never knew that you were the same guy that was doing all this stuff back then. Of course, I was a lot younger, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that was me. So I had this jiu-jitsu newsletter, and I kind of launched Origin through this newsletter, right? I had this built-in kind of community. Yeah. It was like 60,000 YouTube subscribers back then in 2010, 10. And
that's huge, man.
Yeah, it was good back then.
That's huge.
So definitely like ahead of it. And that kind of helped with Amanda. Like, hey, I was able to do this with no money, and I got a few sponsors. And so I think this is the next step. She didn't want to get into business again. She felt so burned by the last business, and she's not an entrepreneur at heart. She likes structure and stability, and so
she's a mama, you know what I mean? Like that's what their core thing is. Like they need to protect their family and have safety. And men got to hunt.
Yeah, exactly. We got to fill whatever that is, whatever that chemical we need, whatever that adventure, the unknown, like we need that. We need to take that risk. Like
that fight. Yeah.
It's important for growth to connect those weak synapses. That's what jiu-jitsu does too, right? It makes you think differently. And so I mean, long story short, she, I couldn't find manufacturing, so I started importing from Pakistan.
You did?
And I did. Yes. Yeah. I
That
did.
sting?
Yeah, yeah, it did. It was like I started with one jiu-jitsu gi I designed, and then I shot some photos, and I launched it. And again, naivete as a superpower, I guess. Sometimes kryptonite. But I sold 200 units, and it was like $40,000, and I was like, holy shit! Now I got to make sure that these things get made, and they'll actually send me the goods. And so I have freaking like Western Union, tens of thousands of dollars over to Pakistan, hoping I'm going to receive these things.
Oh God, what a gamble.
Yeah, yeah. What do I got to lose, man? If I lose it all now, I'll just go live in a freaking teepee. Like I don't give a shit. Once you've had nothing, like growing up, when you have nothing, when you're living off of like thrift store bread, and
I
and you
know,
don't
man.
have, and you're hitchhiking, and then you have something, but then you lose that something, and then now you have everything. It's like, well, everything is up here. All the knowledge, wisdom is here. If you took it all away,
I just
I could
rebuild it
rebuild
bigger.
it. Just rebuild it, like no
rebuild it.
factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm
so
good with
it doesn't.
nothing, dude. I come from nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly.
I live
Yeah.
there in that hole,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. But it's always there, and it's always
Mm-hmm.
ticking. There's like that spot in your brain when you've had when you've been tested. Uh, and I think that makes a strong entrepreneur. I mean, now there's all this research coming out that's like, every entrepreneur, I've met has had something happen that makes their desire to win insatiable. It's like this insatiable desire, not for success, not that you know where you're going, not that you have an end game, but just to know you're moving forward and towards something, and
Away from that.
away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say I'm not running towards anything. I'm running from something.
Yeah.
And I don't truly know what success looks like. I mean, a lot of folks would say, oh, your enterprise is doing $250 million a year. You're so successful. It's like, yeah, I guess so. Like I guess so. It's not a small enterprise.
But we're still going. I still got places to be.
I get up every day with my ass on fire, and like I got something to prove, and I feel like I'm just getting started,
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's what we're talking about. Some people will get to a point and they'll get complacent, or like, okay, I've won, I've completed the mission, and so that's why I kind of set a 100-year plan, to know that the mission still won't be completed after I'm dead. It's still moving. Like we're in like chapter 2 right now of the 10 chapter book.
Yeah.
And and like I'll contribute my 3 or 4 decades of opportunity to it, and hopefully my kids do the same.
This is a generational plan, not a Pete plan.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, and I guess again on the short story, making it even longer at this point, this Pakistani manufacturer I discovered shortly after we started working together. I started sending him all these designs I had in my head, and he would make it to spec. I'd send him the tech packs, and I was just working out of my basement, in my little cabin, and I won the World Pro, right, in 2012. Actually, as a purple belt in 2011, I would have won it. I blew my knee out in like the final match, and so that sucked. But I came back in 2012 as a brown belt, competing in the black belt division, and I ended up winning. And so I was over there, and I saw somebody right before my big match wearing the gi I had designed and sent over to Pakistan. And as they walked by, there was a different logo on the back of it, and I knew in that moment, like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I had to go compete. And
So you were tuned up.
I was tuned out.
Yeah.
I went in, and I didn't really think about the match like with Shanji. I just was literally going through the motions, almost numb. It was almost numb, and the match is on YouTube. And you can see when he got me in the triangle, it was like locked, but I didn't even like fight that much, it was locked. You know, I wasn't like squirming or everything. I was like, yeah, you got me. And then the ref, and you can just see my face is like, I'm not even there. There's like a photo of.
So you think
the
that
eight
I
of
saw
us.
that photo? So you think that's the reason why, like you?
Oh yeah, I was totally checked out. There's a photo of like 8 people, and there's like Shanji, Andre Galvão, Bernardo Faria, and like I'm on the end, and everybody's smiling, and I'm like blank face.
You're thinking
And
about that damn gi.
yeah, yeah, I'm thinking about what I need to do next.
Yeah.
And I also had just made a decision in the moment there that I was done competing, right? So yeah, that was my last year of competing, 2012. But when I landed back in Maine, that long flight home, I called my business partner. I was like, "The Deco, we're going to build a factory. I'm not doing this import thing anymore. I'm not sending money to terrorists. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna build a factory." And I don't know what he thought. He probably thought I was. I mean, I was. That was a crazy idea. That was pretty crazy. And so
Our founding fathers were crazy.
yeah, I always reflect on that.
Batshit crazy.
Oh my gosh, like those dudes should never have won the American Revolution.
It's
I
a bunch of
mean,
20-year-olds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Naive enough to think they could. I mean,
Yeah.
hijacking ships, British ship frigates, and pulling the boots off because they were all barefoot and shit.
Right.
Like, those dudes are savages. And then after the American Revolution, of course, in England, well, in the Great Britain, they had already started industrialization, but we were still an agrarian society. So
Yeah.
we were just like shipping raw materials, but we didn't know how to make anything. We had no factories. Like, even if we shipped cotton over to Europe, they'd weave it into fabric or garments and send it back, and
Right.
we'd have to purchase those things. So, Washington, there's a quote, Washington sent spies to England.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the papers over there, it said, Washington spies are like birds of prey on the banks of the Thames, looking for industrialists. And it's one of the greatest quotes. But we stole the knowledge from Great Britain to start our industrial revolution. We didn't come up with those ideas. We stole those ideas. And Francis Cabot Lowell, where the mill my great guy worked at, he went over, and he was kind of a aristocrat, like he went to Harvard or Princeton or something, right? And so they led him into the mill, even though nobody got into the mills to see the machinery. And they stopped his ship on the way home because it was, at that point, I think it was the War of 1812 was raging on, right? And they stopped his ship and thinking he had these plans, but he didn't, because he had a photographic memory. He had memorized everything. And so he came back to the U.S. and built these machines and mills. And it is crazy history there.
It's awesome that you know that. Most people don't know about that, about Washington, how he was a master spy. Like he was a master spy. His spycraft, he basically created the first spy network in America.
Yeah.
And that's how he got shit done. And he's like in his 20s.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
I mean, I think you got to take I don't want to say take what's yours, but I think you got to protect what's yours.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, whether that's your family, your town, community, your state, your country. I think it's really important to protect that. And not everybody gets to win. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's
Somebody's
like if
gonna lose.
somebody has to lose. Right now, America is losing.
Right.
Right. Like like China is the world's factory, right? America's the world's consumer, but we don't make a whole lot of shit. So how long is that going to go on for? Well, industrialization happens. We can talk about the forced labor, and we can talk about the great leap forward. I mean, there's some serious history there in China, but I'm not for that economic system. I don't believe in communism. So right now we're losing, and the way I look at it is like New England our factory towns have been abandoned, the machinery has been liquidated, and more importantly, the knowledge has been liquidated.
Yeah.
And so part of what we're doing is trying to bring that knowledge back and breathe life back into the dream.
How, where did you get that first loom? 'Cause
Yeah,
you built the warehouse or the factory on your property, right?
yeah. So in the woods out behind my house is this timber frame, factory, and right now it's like mats. It's like
It's beautiful.
Mat space. There's a gym. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But we built this thing. Didn't know I needed three-phase power. So I'm like, what's three-phase power? And they're like, oh, this is what you need to run the machines. I was like, yeah, I'm in the woods. Like, I don't have three-phase power. So I had to figure some shit out, traded a Mossberg shotgun for a phase converter because I didn't have any cash, started up a generator, plugged everything in, found these two old LL Bean sewing machines from World War II and just plugged it in and punched a bunch of holes through my finger, bled a lot, and just started like trying to sew stuff together. And so really, I mean, when I talk about it, I romanticize about it. It's like somebody else did it, but I think being young and naive was really important. Just like Washington, just like the founding fathers, you gotta be naive enough to think you can, because if you think you can, you probably can.
It's a belief. It's successful people. I tell all the time. Like, the only difference in successful people, they don't have any limiting beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know that they can't, so they just do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm the same. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
I didn't buy into the propaganda that you can't do it. I heard all the stories growing up, and I just kept going back to like, these people dug these canals in Lewiston, Maine, by hand, and there's enough granite in those canal systems to build another great pyramid. Like, and they did it by hand, and they didn't have computers, and they didn't have a Komatsu excavator, and they didn't have shit to do it. They just had themselves, hands in daylight. And so I'm like, if they could do it, we have all this technology. I have reference things. I can. There's a way I can figure this out. I got YouTube, man. I got YouTube. Right? I learned so much on YouTube. But then, again, I started sewing stuff, and I was like, cool. Now I gotta get the fabric, and nowhere to be found. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I got to import the fabric from China or Pakistan. And I just felt like a complete sellout, because I'm like, here I am going to build stuff in America. I built this little timber frame factory.
There's nothing to build.
Yeah. You can't even get the raw materials that you need. So I'm a lot different of an entrepreneur now, but it took me made a lot of tuition payments to get from there to here. Yeah. But it was like, wow, I really put the cart before the horse on that one.
We
like,
stole that John and I stole that term from you, by the way, tuition payments.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all we say. Cool. Like, something happens and we're like, tuition payment.
Tuition payment. Yeah.
No big deal.
It's kind of like Jocko says, good. I'm like, yeah, tuition payment, because they're not going to teach you that shit in school.
Nope.
Like you can go to business school, but they're not going to. You pay tuition, but you're not going to pay the real life tuition.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your education is. You have to get into life to learn these things.
You have to make your tuition payments. It's going to happen.
Yeah. And so I was visiting this guy in Lewiston, Mo, who sold me those sewing machines and those old Singers, and he's like, "What's on your mind? I can tell something's bothering you." And I was just like, "I don't know, man. I think I need a loom or something." And he's like, "Get in my truck." And so we get in his old truck and we drive like 2 blocks up to this old abandoned mill, this massive mill. And he walks inside, and there's this older woman, Rachel, in there, and he's like, he's looking for a loom. She's like, "You're looking for a loom?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, She's like, goes in her office, comes back, and has this release, like, basically, if you die, you won't, your family can't sue us. It's basically like a release to go into an abandoned factory, and you're going across this gangway that's basically almost falling off the building. So I follow her up this old staircase across this gangway. It's deteriorated onto this massive mill. The boards are all punky and rotten, and some of the floors like fallen through, and it's just completely, water's just dripping from the roof. And there, like 100 yards in front of me, is this old green loom frame. and it was the last one that was left when the Chinese stripped the mill clean. I guess this one wasn't good enough because it was just a frame. And we walked over to it, and it was like I found freaking gold. I was like, holy shit, this is what a loom is? She's like, yeah. It's like, can I have it? Like, she's like, for what? I'm like, I'm gonna make it work again. And she was just like, yeah, you're crazy, but
You're like, yeah, I'm insane.
yeah. And so she charged me like a couple grand, I think, for it. And I don't even know if I paid her overtime or whatever, but I called the rigging company. They're like, it's going to be $20,000 to move it out of there. I mean, it's just a real hard job to move it out of there.
I saw the pictures of it going in, which I was like, oh, this is wild.
Yeah. So I told my father-in-law, Joe, I'm like, can we move this thing? He's like, yeah, we got it. And so me and a bunch of jiu-jitsu friends and my father-in-law, we went up there, and it took us like.
Your father-in-law's a badass, by the way. Since you brought him up, what a freaking badass.
He's a maniac.
Yeah.
We just, again, hands in daylight. We just got on that thing and jacked it up, and slowly over, I think it was like 8 hours or something, 8 or 9 hours, we pushed this thing across the floor over. We had these 1/4-inch thick steel plates, and we would lay them over, trying to get over all the punky boards, and we had these Hillman rollers, and it fell off a couple times, and then we got stuck, and there was this old forklift in there, and he's a real life MacGyver. I mean, you've met him. He's like he makes MacGyver look like child's play.
What they based MacGyver, like the real guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this freaking forklift had been there for 20 years, like not running. Joe gets it running again somehow. I have no idea how. And so we got it to the door, and it was in this upper floor, big hole in the wall, and a friend had a crane, and we just slung that thing out over Main Street and lowered it and dropped it onto the trailer. And I was like, here we go. We have a loom. Little did I know what it was going to actually take to make it run again. But I didn't have a choice. I had to be like Washington. I was like a bird of prey. Yeah. I was calling, factories, telling them I have this loom. I'm looking for someone to help me make it run. And finally, I got a hold of this guy, Lenny, who he's like, no, I can't really help you. And I was like, I heard you're the only one in Maine that can help me. And he's like, well, probably, but he's like, I really can't. And I was like, listen, man, I said, I don't have any money, but I'll pay you whatever it costs. And I will work 7 days a week. If you come here on the evenings, weekends, I said, why don't you just come and look at it? Yeah. And so I finally got him to come and look at it. And I think he just felt inspired that somebody cared about the knowledge and bringing this piece of shit.
And he was correct me if I'm wrong, he was the last dude that knew how to do it, right?
I asked him one time, like, how many people are there left that know what you know? And he's like, oh, a whole bunch. And I'm like, how many? He's like, 5. And like, he's the only one in Maine. And so it was a real blessing. I call it the origin way. Everything, like, if you look at our history, there's all these miracle moments that, like, things just happened, and you could call it, I don't know, manifestation, or you could call it, for me, it's God, like, just like keeping me on track in life. Definitely. And so, I think we're pretty blessed. And God bless his heart. Lenny passed a few years ago, but he brought that thing back to life, and I watched and learned. I mean, it was crazy.
Did he get it started based off what it had, or did you have to replace things and find things? And
we had to find. We had to skirt. We had to like go into old mills and find parts, and we had to make parts. If we had like one thing, we needed to make like 20 more of these things, right? Like, you can't buy the parts from them. We're peeling things off, putting them on. We're rigging it up.
How long did it take you guys from time you put it in to the time it got started?
Cleaning it took 40 40 man hours cleaning it. I had my little kids in there cleaning it, and my wife and her friends, just cleaning it. Yeah, just cleaning it. Yeah. Luckily, it had been weaving wool, and wool, this oil in wool is called lanolin, and this lanolin, obviously you know that, and this lanolin had protected like its most vital parts, right? So the parts were good. But we cleaned it, and then, gosh, we worked on it all winter. I mean, maybe 3 to 6 months. I wish I should probably go back and look how many months it took. It was months and months and months. Um, I mean, gosh, it was crazy because we did finally get it running, and we got, I didn't know what I was buying for yarn. I just like, here's what I want to make. I gave him like a, copy of our fabric, and it was 100% cotton at the time, and so we wove this fabric, all this fabric, and I sent it off to get dyed. I don't know anything about anything, and it came back and it was beautiful. I was like, gosh, we really did it. And so we cut and sewed it into jiu-jitsu gis, maybe 100 to 200 units.
God, the feeling of that moment.
Well, the feeling was short-lived.
Of course. Why not? Why would it be?
Yeah, because every gi all the dye washed out of every gi. I was just like, what am I doing? And
what did you do?
Well, I remembered the story of Leon Woodbean, the guy that started LL Bean. And his first 200 hunting boots failed. You know, the LL Bean boot with the rubber bottom and the leather upper. And he replaced them. And so I was like, okay, 200 jiu-jitsu gis, the dye ran out of them, failed. So I told customers, listen, we'll do whatever you need us to do. I also said, nobody's ever done this. Nobody's ever made jiu-jitsu gis in the United States. And we're on a mission to make the best gis, and this is part of the process of figuring it out. So we'll make a new gi for you. We just need some time. If you could give us a little bit of grace. And everybody was totally cool with it. I made all the phone calls or answered all the phone calls.
I would imagine so. If I was one of those guys, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I probably would have said, sent me the dyed out gi. I'd probably just wear that thing. I don't give a shit.
And the people who have those gis, they cherish them because they have the first one.
So you shipped them anyway. You gave them, said, hey, here's the
I
deal.
didn't know. I shipped them all out. I'm like, yes. Yeah. And then the phone calls started coming in. My gi turned like almost white. It's like light gray. It's like, it's like a dirty white, basically.
But they exist. They're out there.
They're out there. Yeah,
that's cool.
They're out there. Yeah, I don't even own one.
Well, that's
if
the way
anybody
it goes.
listens to this owns one, like, I'd like to buy it back from you. I'd like to have one.
If anybody's listening.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, I could go on and on. I'm actually working on a book right now. I'm about 30,000 words into it. But there's so many instances of, like, just really, really like, you should quit, instances.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. Is the juice really worth the squeeze?
Me and my job, one of my business partners is a former teammate. We were on a special operations team together, and it just kind of, we always were aligned. And, now I feel like we're in chapter 15 of our friendship because, we're over 15 years in. We went to combat. He saved my life. And then now we're in business together and families. And like, if something happened to me and my wife, that's where my kids would go to, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah. And we have this thing all the time that, business is hard. Even though as I'm successful, I consider myself, successful. I'm not done, but it's hard. And we always just say, like, we're just too dumb to quit.
Yep.
We just don't know I don't know any other way other than just keep going forward.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you guys, obviously you worked it out. Origin became Origin. And where's that loom now?
It's still in the factory.
It's working?
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm going to move it out this summer. I was just waiting for the ground to harden up, which is close. I think they put posters up for you can't move like heavy loads on the roads for a period of time, but we're going to move it out this summer, and I'm going to probably put it in the first like commercial like owned store, like whether that's in Boston or whatever. I'll put this loom in as a destination location so people can see it.
That's cool. It got you. It was the seed, man. It's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously now you guys are doing everything, but like let's fast forward to you guys really, Pete, you got big balls, man.
I don't know about that.
No, you do, because watching, and I know, obviously I know a little bit behind the scenes, and being in business myself, I know what it takes. And like you guys purchased a place here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that had to have been, I just can't even imagine like your brain, like behind the scenes, but.
Yeah, it doesn't really ever shut off, I mean, that's the blessing and the curse of having what do they call it? I'm learning everything now, like all the terms, because when I was a kid, it was just kid has ADHD, medicate him. My mom didn't medicate me as a kid. She just got me into sports, and she kind of let me just do what I do, which was great. But there's all these terms. There's all these terms now they use for like this type of a personality trait. They actually call it like the hunter gatherer, personality trait, right? So yeah, I mean, and I've learned, where it really makes me weak, and
there's definitely faults to it, right? Because we can get distracted,
sure.
We can move on. We don't stay consistent on one thing. Or you're always one of the.
Yes, I always want to go. So when I have ideas, like I have a folder on my desktop. Every idea in there is $1 billion. Like there's, right. I mean, I have brands built out. I mean, logos. I have business plans. And so when I go down the rabbit hole on something, I will build the whole concept out, the visuals, everything, the plans, what needs to happen, and I'll file it. And if I still like it in 6 months, I'll bring it back. I'll look at it again. I might add a little bit to it. Then if I still like it 6 months from then, maybe I'll think about it. I've yet to do anything else except for, Origin and my nutritional brand. But the nutritional brand was, at the time we started it, it was a little bit of an entrepreneurial seizure. It was still ADHD, kind of moment, because I had an opportunity with a friend of mine who had started this nutritional thing called Q5, and we did this cross reference of our databases, and we had it was like 50% or 80% of the customers were the same person, same address. So I worked a deal with him where he sold me this little tiny jiu-jitsu nutrition brand, and thank God we did that, even though if it was a little bit of an entrepreneurial seizure, because we launched this nutritional brand, and we ended up calling it Origin Labs. And then Jocko and I got together, and when we got together, we rebranded it to Jocko Fuel. And that was like one of the most important things we could have ever done, because that funded everything.
Yeah.
Like that product line. And the reason I told that story is because the plan always was, before Jocko and then with Jocko, was this manufacturing thing is hard and expensive, and it's going to take a long time. It's a 100-year plan. I never want to sell to private equity or venture capital or go public. So what are we going to do that? Well, we have to build another business that has really high margin, that we can scale fast, and we can extract the profits from it and dump it into this thing, which is going to scale slow.
Right.
My one of my best friends and business partners, Kip Fulks, Kip.
Yeah, I know Kip.
He said, Pete, it's either going to be like, this might be the most genius business move ever. And I'm like, or probably the numbest move ever, right? Because you're overextending yourself. But right. It is worked out, especially when Jocko came on board, because Jocko had a megaphone, right? And we shook hands, had a steak and a handshake in Portland, Maine, and we basically gave each other half of our business, right? So we traded, and we just went in together, head first, arms tucked. And Jocko's a New England boy, grew up in Maine and Connecticut, and so we just had a lot in common there. But he's like, Pete, I'm gonna tell the world, and you make everything happen. You make everything happen, and I'll go tell the world. And I was like, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. And so we rebranded this.
And he honored that. And that's what's cool.
Oh, he still does to this day. Yeah. Oh, he honors it every day. He honors it.
And he believes it.
We ended up, obviously, doing paperwork, and we had all the contracts after like 3 years or something. There was like, yeah, it was crazy.
It's funny because John and I are similar. We did not know each other, and within 3 weeks, we were handshaking and building on the road to build an 8-figure brand. And we met at a Chipotle, and he was 23 years old. And I just said, dude, this is a multi-million-dollar brand. You're onto something. We gotta tell the world.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck it, let's do it.
Basically the same. I think it's so cool because that's the way, things were done, like the handshakes and gentlemen's agreements. And I just think it's really solid when two people are aligned. I do think the legalese is important, but when you're a startup, you
gotta align.
You gotta be aligned, and it's great because you're in it together.
Yeah.
And Jocko, he didn't come on board. We were already 7 years in to the brand, and then he came on board. But we did more in the next 2 years than we did in the previous 7. But
kind of the way it works, yeah.
The time, capital, and capacity of the 7 felt like 20 years.
Of course.
Right? It felt like 20. It extracted everything from you physically and mentally.
Yeah, you eat shit for 7 years.
Yeah, you eat shit, right? Yeah. So, but the next 2 to 3, the growth was so compounded. I mean, going from having 1,000 customers to 10,000 customers to 100,000 customers, like that compounding growth. So, Jocko, when we made Jocko Fuel, it really hit his market because he had built up all this social equity with his podcast. It really hit, and that scaled quickly, bigger than Origin, right? Like it's 3 times the size of Origin right now. So and we could make the product quick, whereas on the Origin side, we just needed to make really good gis and figure out manufacturing and all this stuff, and we knew it was going to be slow. But Origin will be $1 billion brand. Like we're almost, like we're growing fast. We're growing fast, and eventually, and it could be in 5 years, it could be in 10 years, it could be in 20 years. I don't care. I don't care how long it takes. It takes
as long as it takes.
As long as it takes.
The foot's on the gas. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah.
Exactly. But I just want, people to know that it had to be capitalized, and Jocko Fuel, the growth of it provided the capital we needed to buy that factory in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was the capital of this, it's an Origin owned brand. Origin owns Jocko Fuel. Mm-hmm. And we did that. We structured it purposefully so that the LLCs, the money could flow. Right. Yeah. So there's not a blocker. It's a flow through entity. And right up until 2022, that's how we funded footwear. We brought denim blue jean manufacturing because of the community of Jocko Fuel, and those monies stayed on U.S. soil.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Obviously, this started out a very much jiu-jitsu thing. Where was the transition to T-shirts and jeans and boots and all the things that Jocko's that Origin is making now? Like you're a clothing manufacturer. Like the stuff is amazing. The hunting gear, the flannels, the everything is just it's amazing. So where was the mental pivot from jiu-jitsu to that, or was it always planned?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, Nick? Because it was cutting out a little bit, but I got your question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the plan for Origin was always to be a brand. Like I remember going and visiting Oakley in California, and I knew, like I was into brands, Jim Gennard or Jake Burton at Burton Snowboards in Vermont. Like I was into brands, and founders and how they started. And like Burton started in snowboarding, Oakley started in, geez, I think it was motorcycle grips. I think they started, and then they put silicone on goggle straps, and they became a sunglasses company. So I was always interested in those founder stories, and for me, I was like, cool, Origin is going to start in the most badass sport on the planet, jiu-jitsu. Like, that's such a cool foundation. But from day one, the plan was to build a brand, like not a jiu-jitsu brand, to build a brand. I used to say, like, when I casted the long-term strategic vision back then, it was jiu-jitsu will be 5% of our business when we get to where we're going. I'm not sure where we're going. Could be less.
Yeah.
Even though jiu-jitsu is 100% of our business right now, that addressable market is only so big. And I knew I wanted to make footwear. Like, we made our first prototype of footwear in 2015. That was a year after we got the loom, and it sat on my shelf. And I just kept it in front of me, just knowing this is something we wanted to do. We made our first blue jeans, I think, in 2016, and failed miserably. And so I just kind of set that aside. This is when I started to figure out where ADHD was kryptonite.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Doing
how far do I go into something?
Yeah, other things too soon and not focus on your core. Yeah.
Exactly. So the things I wanted to build, I started just prototyping and filing away. I just prototype and file it away. But the idea was we're going to be America's next big brand. And I didn't know if that was going to take us into a sporting brand, like Under Armour style, or a clothing brand at that time. I had leaned towards durable goods. I had leaned towards Maine-esque goods. You know, good, heavy duty, well sewn, constructed, quality goods. And the moment we had capital to do that, liquid, you know, like free cash flow, we did. And that's why we started boots and jeans at the same time, because it was like, boots and jeans built America. And you've heard me say this before. Yeah. Boots and jeans built America. If we're going to rebuild America, we have to start with the two hardest products there is to make. That's denim blue jeans and boots. A foot is asymmetrical. A boot is sculpted. It's a sculpture, right? Mm-hmm. You're sculpting this three-dimensional product. Jeans are so hard to make. We haven't made them here in 30 years. If we can build those two things, we can make anything. Now, keep in mind, our jiu-jitsu gi pants that we reinvented, we basically took jeans and made them into gi pants. We just took the construction technique of jeans into gi pants. So we knew if we could make those two products, we could make anything. And to rebuild America, we needed to have the uniform of the worker, which was blue jeans and boots. And so it all just kind of fit. To me, it made a lot of sense, you know, to people from the outside who are like Origin's a jiu-jitsu company. They're like, what are you guys doing? You're getting distracted. You know, you're a jiu-jitsu company. Everyone gets it now. It's just time and pressure, and that drum beat of messaging and storytelling. But yeah, I'd always seen us as America's next big brand.
Pete, is there anybody in America making jeans, manufacturing jeans in America?
At scale, us at scale.
That's what I mean. At scale,
bespoke shop at scale. There's a company that makes jeans in the prison system. That's doing it at scale.
Okay.
When it comes to, like, you know, having an owned factory where you have a wash house where you can wash denim.
Company.
And, like, there's not another. Yeah, I don't think there's another east of the Mississippi. No, it's just us. In LA, I don't know what's in LA. LA has all these different areas where there's people working, sometimes, you know, sometimes even forced labor in LA. It's pretty wild. I don't do anything out there. But at scale there's Origin, and that's it, really.
And you guys have this saying, dirt to shirt, obviously.
Yeah.
And you've kind of taken that to a whole nother level with this North Carolina edition and cotton and everything. But from my research, you guys are one of the only ones for jeans, t-shirts, everything.
Yeah.
Like there might be people doing other things or components of other things, but at the end of the day, it's you.
Yeah, the dirt to shirt, field to finish, fiber to fabric, like that whole idea. Um, it's crazy, a bit crazy. I like crazy. It's not. Because made in America can be a lie, right? You can have a company bring fabric over, or
Right.
even having most of the products known in a different country, South America, whatever. It comes here and they put it together, and you can call it made in America. So we use this term built by freedom. It's a term we trademarked, which means if it's built by freedom, that means that it's freedom infused in every component and every part and every bit of labor has to come from US soil. And so our built by freedom is like made in America, but branded for origin because it's different when we say made in America. Um, and and that's a message. That's a drum beat. We just constantly beat that drum. Um, that this is different. This is the way it used to be done. Like 100 years ago, this is how it was done, right? You actually made the thread to sew the shoe. Um, you tanned the leather. You didn't import that stuff. And so I can say that 90 that out of a dollar spent, 100 cents stays on U.S. soil. So it's all going back into the supply chain, and that's at this point it's hundreds of millions of dollars,
Right.
right? So it's a lot of money staying in America.
And that was kind of my next question is, I guess getting into like the economic and political side of this is, why is this important to America, from your opinion?
Yeah, for me it's pretty simple. Um, the power of purpose, man. You know, the the foundation of America, the purpose was for immigrants to come in and to build a new life. Our family from Greece, right? Like
Yep.
they couldn't they didn't have upward trajectory where they were. And so they heard about this thing called the American dream, and on a whim and a prayer, they sailed to America. My great yaya through Ellis Island, uh, n- not having a plan, just knowing there was industrialization and there was mills to work in, right? And that you could earn money. And there was this thing starting called the middle class, right? You got to remember, like, I don't know in Roman times as much, but very few times was there ever a middle class. There was peasants, and there was the aristocrats. There was the
Right.
the upper crust, um, and there's nothing in the middle. And so this new exercise with America, with the United States of America, and this American dream was that you could build a life what beyond what you had. And you got to remember, even in Great Britain, you couldn't get educated. Like, you had to have name and title to get an education. So unless you were part of that upper crust, the aristocracy, and you couldn't go to school, right? You weren't taught to read. You had to work on the farms. um, and so we were like, no, come here. You can make money. You can build a life, and you can go as far as you want to go. And I love that Washington is like, you're not going to call me a king. I'm not going to be a
Yeah.
king. We don't do kings, right? The president of the United States can literally be anybody with any type of background, and that's what makes this exercise really, really beautiful. I was in London 2 years ago, and a member of parliament at this private house in this private party, and he said, "Oh, you're from America?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Bloody hell, I still can't believe you guys are getting on with it," And he had that British accent, like it's still working, Let's see how much longer it's working for. Like, you're gonna come back and like take the colonies back or what?
Yeah. Right.
Like, good luck. You got your own issues to deal with. But it's a beautiful thing. It's almost like, it's a bit like Lord of the Flies. Bunch of people just here rebelling against the empire. Now we have our own country, and next year is going to be 250 years, which is amazing. But that was
Yeah.
like that long ago.
Yeah.
That was that long ago.
Right.
You know, like it's unbelievable. It was only 250 years ago. So
It's
we need
funny.
to
I
remind.
worked with a lot in special operations. I had to work with a lot of the guys. He goes, "You guys don't have history." He's like, "We have history.
Yeah.
You guys have a habit."
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's history that's very close to us. My papa used to tell me, he's like, Pete, when I was 8 years old, I used to sit at the corner store and talk to the vets about the war.
Yeah.
The war was the Civil War. So he would sit at the corner store and he would talk to the vets of the Civil War, right? So
Yeah.
it's you know, it's pretty wild. But I think part of what we're trying to do, I know part of what I'm trying to do is remind people why we have what we have, and it sounds cliche, but not take it for granted. But instead of saying those things, I'm trying to show those things.
Yeah.
Like, let's display what it looks like to not take it for granted. Let's take the risks and tell the stories so people understand what it looks like to not take it for granted, to not rest on your laurels, to know how we got to the point that we got to, and the sacrifices they made to allow us to even have this conversation through this incredible technology.
Yeah.
Right? Like it like a lot of people died, a lot of people took risks, a lot of people failed. And now we have what we have. So let's not lose it to China, to Bangladesh, to India, and manufacturing. And why manufacturing is so important is because it once was the heartbeat of America, and where all these cultures, the French and the Greeks and the Irish and everybody else came together, melted together, and made things together. And so that was the power of purpose. The purpose was to come together and build a better life. And you walk away at the end of the day, you look back and say, I made that thing, we made that thing together. And they got along. And now you have people separated. You have this group or this group or this group, and with different ideologies, and it's not about America anymore. It's not about building this great nation to be, you know, a 1,000-year empire. It's so separated, and I believe that when we start making things together again, much like jiu-jitsu is America. If you show up at our immersion camp, you're gonna have Fortune 500 executives, you're gonna have plumbers, you're gonna have billionaires, you're gonna have celebrities. No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit who you are or what you've done. And 450, 500 people melt together on these mats like a factory.
And break bread together and sit by the fire together.
That's what it's supposed to be about. That's what this beautiful exercise, you know, is supposed to be about. And so the soul of jiu-jitsu is the soul of origin, but also it's the soul of a nation. So it's raw and tangible and real, and the world needs to know there's something more besides just consuming. Like, I don't want you to buy more, I want you to actually buy less, but I want you to know where it came from and who made it and why we made it, and I want it to serve a purpose for a life that serves a purpose, and so that's the big idea.
What do you believe that doing what you're doing in a long term, like you say, the 100-year plan, do you think that it's going to affect the American economy? And if more people do it? And I think that's where people, I think, don't fully understand. Like, you're making an impact on the economy. You're making an impact in community, because without you, like, how many employees do you have across the whole franchise?
It's got to be close to 500. I don't know the exact number.
And you pay them above national. I forgot what the term is, but then above the national
minimum wage. Yeah.
Minimum wage. And
we
do the same. Because I did this video before we go. I did this video about Trump's tariffs things, about making America, like, in his whole making things in America, and dude, I got so much hate from the international side of things, and I'm like, we've literally been doing it for almost 8 years, and I look at you, you've been doing it for going on over 20 years now.
No, I mean, making stuff in America, 2013 is when I really
2013.
my ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we're already doing it.
Yeah.
We're already doing it, and it
Yeah.
works. And we're nowhere near the size that you are, but I'm thinking about our, in this building, right? Like what we have going on, these 30 something employees, they get paid what they get paid. Where would they go? What would they have, and what would their life be like? You got 500 and something employees, and I'm thinking like, okay, so if you did this, we continue to grow, you continue to grow, other people start making the same decisions.
Yep.
When I look at it like I look at everything from kind of an asymmetrical warfare. I mean, it's just my background. So what are the second and third order effects of these decisions that we're making? Yes. And are they positive and negative? And when you start moving these things, like you went to like South America to like pull all the looms back that we got rid of.
I mean, I didn't actually physically go outside the United States to bring machines back, but we definitely brought machines back.
You brought machines,
my father-in-law literally went to South America.
Right.
I didn't go, but my team went for sure. I'm like, if I got an issue, I just call Joe. He lives up the road.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you go to South? Where did I send him? I don't even know where I sent him. Dominican.
I was gonna say it's Dominican. You sent him to Dominican.
Can you go to? I just bought all the machines from this factory. Can you go to the Dominican Republic and bring them back to America?
MacGyver your way back here with all this equipment.
And he does. He's got like security down there, and they palletize the stuff, and they put it on containers, and we're literally doing that.
And that's my thing is John and I always think like if not us, who? And then what happens when we don't? What is the second, third order effects of the opposite of that? And that, to me, that's scary. That means you lose the soul of a nation. You lose your heart versus what you're doing, and I commend you, is like you're bringing the soul of a nation back. And it's crazy how much opposition you have.
Yeah.
And how much fight you have to do that.
Yeah, and I don't believe we can be a service-based nation. I don't think we can just be service-based and just consume, especially with the onset of AI. And if AI becomes sentient, everyone is smart.
That's a separate podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We could go deep on that one. Yeah. But everyone's going to be smart, and everyone's going to so you can't just consume. You have to make. You have to make something, and you have to have the resources to do so. I mean, this whole world runs off of natural resources,
and we can do it here. We have it. We can.
Yeah. We have the intelligence to do it, and the resourcefulness to do it, and the rebellion inside us to do it. I certainly haven't lost it.
And I think it's in. I mean, if you live here, I think you have it. You might. Yeah. Maybe it's just been squandered by the opposition, but it's in there. So what's next? What's next for Origin? I know we got the camp coming up. I'm sure that's sold out, right?
Yeah, sold out. Yeah, the merchant camp's coming up, which is a lot of fun to see everybody every year. And we're, as a brand, I just cast the next 10-year vision for Origin. Just leaning into this really functional, durable. I hate to use the word menswear, but that's kind of what it is. It's you got to have those. Well, like these, your nice. Chelsea boots.
So slick.
They're sick, and your chinos and your denim blue jeans, and just stuff that's going to last a lifetime. Hopefully your grandkids end up wearing. So those really good old school durable heritage goods, menswear, casual, smart casual, and heritage and athleisure training gear, just like everything we would use as men in our life. We want to be able to make and provide. So when you walk in your closet, everything you're looking at, you can throw on and be good to go and know it was built by freedom, not just made in America, but built by freedom.
Amazing. Well, guys, this guy is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of inspiration. I highly suggest you go check him out, follow him on Instagram. That's where you get all the real good dirt about Origin. Is yes. Pete's account.
yeah. Pete.origin on Instagram.
Yeah, the unsolicited. It's not the marketing team. It's just Pete being Pete.
Yeah, and I'm just myself. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I just don't. I just do me, and I live in the woods, so I don't have anybody to report to.
Isn't that beautiful when you unapologetically can be you and not give a shit what anybody else thinks?
Yeah. Not
Guys,
to be an asshole about it, just, you know,
no, of course.
it's just is.
Too many people looking for permission
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
themselves. But guys, go, you know, if you love America, then you'll love Origin. That's just what it comes down to. And I know I sound like, and Pete doesn't pay me to say this at all whatsoever, but I just believe in the mission so much. It such aligns with ours. Being an immigrant family myself, you know, it just hits to my heart. And I love this country, man. I love this country and what it's done for me. And like I just wouldn't have the opportunities that I had if I lived in Greece, you know, and I love Greece. But if I grew up there like my cousins, I couldn't have done what I did here.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So if you love America, buy Origin. Pete, I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in August.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate that. Remember to like it. Remember to drop me a comment. I want to respond to it. I'm actually the one responding to the comments. And if you like this video, you're going to absolutely love this one right here.